So we'll talk about menu planning. And first of all, for you, it's important to know that in a kitchen, we normally use menus to be able at least to prepare the meals for the day. So we normally have two types of menus that we normally use. So one is called the a la carte, and we also have table dot. Okay. So in a table dot kind of menu, I think I can be able to highlight it here. So this one is a la carte, and we also have table dot. These are two types of menus that we normally use, and of course you have to put a bit of punctuations because of French. Okay, so you have also to look on the right pronunciation of those terms in French for you to be able to know how to write them correctly. So we have the two, the a la carte and the table dot, and those are the main ones that we normally use, especially in the kitchen, for us to be able to know which kind of meals that we are going to prepare uh, for a certain establishment. And I think we can talk about the comparison of the two. When you're talking about the table dot, it is a menu that has a number of fixed courses. And when we are talking about these courses, mainly we have a standard which we call the three-course meal. Three-course meal is normally, let's write it here, a three-course meal. An example of a three-course meal, it normally has a starter or appetizer. Then it is followed by a main course. Then it has a dessert. So basically, this is a three-course meal. It is a three-course meal. When we are talking about, it has fixed number of courses. Okay, so if it is a three-course, then definitely we know that this is what it comprises of. Okay, so basically, if it is a starter, they can maybe, for example, start with a soup, then maybe come to a main course. Maybe they say maybe tilapia and ugali, and maybe if it is for a dessert, maybe tilapia, some maybe mixed vegetables, or maybe fried spinach with ugali, and then maybe they will come to a dessert. Maybe they will talk about maybe a piece of cake or a fruit salad. Okay, so in table dot is whereby it is standard. Okay, so it is fixed, so they know that if they want to prepare a certain meal for that specific day, then they will have to work with that fixed type of course. Okay, and definitely it has limited choices in between the courses, so you cannot be able to select. So it's either you eat fish or or maybe beef, if there is a selection of such, but they normally have a fixed course. And they have a general pricing. Okay, at the end of the day, you'll notice that if you eat, either you eat the fish or you just choose not to eat the ugali, then you'll end up paying the fixed amount of money. So, but when you're talking about a la carte, is the opposite of table dot. So this is whereby at least there's a whole selection. If you go to maybe a small restaurant out in the street, then you'll notice that they have a wide selection of meals that they prepare. So you'll notice that if it is the snacks, they have a whole list of snacks and beverages you can select. Okay, so you might just decide to take a burger and maybe a soda, and you can decide to take French fries and maybe a steak, and pay for only what you have eaten. But this one, for the table dot is a bit different, okay? And all the meals that are normally, maybe if you make a selection, maybe for example you want the French fries, then they will have to take a bit, okay? Maybe ordering, I don't know, especially a good example is like uh, maybe chicken in or pizza in. So you have noted that even if you make an order, it's not that you get it immediately. So you'll be told to wait a few minutes so that at least for them to, finish up the cooking, or maybe the pizza or the chicken or the French fries and so on. So at least you can see that at least for the a la carte menu, at least meals are not just ready to eat, okay? You have to give an allowance for the meals to be prepared. But for the table dot, all the meals that are, have been allocated in that menu needs to be ready, especially if it is 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock and the meals are supposed to be served, then you are supposed to serve them at that time. So knowing what a menu is, it is also important to know that menu planning, making a plan for the menu early in advance, it is quite important, okay? Because number one, it allows time to cook up ideas. Maybe for example, if you have seen maybe a good meal which has been prepared maybe in a certain country or in a certain restaurant, so you can be able to research up, okay, and be able to maybe to introduce another, maybe an addition of a spice which can, make it taste a bit different, okay? And also it makes sure that at least you are aware also with what your guests like, okay? So if your guests like maybe nutritional kind of meals, then you can be able to ensure that nutritional meals are included in the menu and so on. So basically menu planning is about making sure that whatever is produced, it is produced according to a certain way or a certain standard, okay? So it has to follow some specific protocols, okay? So you have to consider maybe the usage of cookery books, okay? So you'll notice that most of the time, especially in our practicals, we'll always use maybe, for example, practical cookery. Practical cookery is what we normally use because it is the standard cooking book, okay? So we try as much as possible to use the latest version of practical cookery so that at least you are updated with the recent techniques that are used while cooking or preparing the food. But you can also try considering what the competitors are doing in terms of their menus, and also try checking on the popular menus, okay, in terms of maybe checking them out in the magazines or advertisements and so on, so that at least when you plan your menu, you have planned it considering a lot of factors. So you also need to know that you have to make sure that you combine and design your menu in a good format, okay, making sure that at least the arrangement signifies actually what your establishment stands for, okay, its objectives, and and considering maybe specific clients or guests. Like for example, if the guests maybe who are coming to establishments are diabetic, or maybe they are suffering maybe with ulcers and so on. So you have to ensure that you take your time to be able to make a menu which can be able even to cater for some guests with maybe some certain conditions. So I think that we should maybe look at the factors to consider in planning for meal production. Okay. So number one, you have to look at the time which is available to prepare that meal. Okay. So for example, you can't maybe say that you can you can't just prepare pilau. Pilau actually it takes a whole process in making. So you have to consider all the timing of also the preparation of pilau. So for example, if it is a la carte kind of menu that you want to settle with, and you say that you're going to prepare pilau, then it is not going to be, appropriate, okay? Because what if a guest comes in the morning and asks for pilau? Will they get pilau? Okay, so maybe for example, such kind of meals you have to, indicate it, or also ensure that also the guests know that such kind of meals are found maybe at a specific time. Okay, or because of the availability of the time. Okay, you cannot take a lot of time preparing it. Okay, anytime that the guest comes and asks for it, you have to go and prepare it. And also you have to consider about the money which is available, and also look at the meals which must be cooked. Okay, so you remember nowadays, when you're talking about the fast foods, especially the restaurants, you'll notice that they're trying to consider maybe specific meals that can be prepared and the ones that cannot be prepared. Okay, so for example, if they say that it is a fast food and they want just to prepare the French fries and the chicken and so on, so you'll notice that most of the restaurants will want to prepare maybe to prepare, yes, they will prepare chicken, but they won't prepare the kienyeji chicken. Okay, so they will opt not to cook the kienyeji chicken because it takes a lot of time. Okay, so and kienyeji chicken you cannot deep fry it. Okay, because it will definitely take a lot of time to cook. So the only way you can prepare the kienyeji chicken is by stewing it. Okay, so if you stew it, then it means that it will cook well, and the guests will not complain that it is too hard, it cannot even be eaten. So you have to consider the meals that can be cooked, and also with the availability of the time. And also, in terms of considering the planning of the meal production, you also have to check on the labor skills. Labor skills are the people who are available to do the work. Okay, maybe the chefs, the cooks, and so on. They are knowledgeable. Okay, have they been taught about how to prepare these meals? So you cannot have something in the menu which is not uh, which no one, okay, in your staff members can be able to prepare. Okay, so you'll only have what can be prepared by the type of labor that you have. So also, if maybe your hotel or restaurant considers maybe to prepare some certain meals, okay, so for example, you should also have a specific menu for the breakfast, and another one for lunch, and another one for dinner. Okay, so if you prepare, it's like a 24-hour clock kind of restaurant or a hotel, you also have to have these different types of menus. So there's no way that it is lunchtime and you're bringing maybe breakfast kind of items for the guests. Okay, so you have to differentiate. If it is breakfast, then have a breakfast kind of menu that has been prepared. Okay, especially for breakfast. For lunch, have the same, and for dinner also have the same things that are considered to be eaten during these hours. So I think the other ones they are self-explanatory. You can be able to go through them and understand. So I want also to talk about recipes. Okay, so we have talked about menu planning. What about the recipes? Okay. So it is a must for you also to use a recipe when you are preparing meals, especially in the kitchen, because the recipes are quite important. Okay, these are maybe these are This actually acts like a formula, okay, a formula for preparation of food and beverage. They have been tested, they have been adopted, and they are, they have been qualified to be true, okay. So for example, when you just come into the training kitchen for the very first time, then we are going to introduce you to the usage of a recipe, okay. So we do things with a formula, okay. So the standard way in which you are trained to make, maybe for example, goulash beef, for instance, then you should be able to make it the same way, even if you're working in any part of the world. That should be the same way that you are supposed to make the goulash beef, okay. So there are some standard ways that you are supposed to make. So for example, if it is a banana cake, there is a certain procedure that you have to use for you to be able to make the same banana cake. So if it is a chef who is in Hilton, or it's a chef who is in Sarova, if they test that cake, they can ascertain that this is the correct type of cake. This is the correct type of banana cake. It is a standard way that you have used to make that banana cake. So a recipe is quite important, and I don't know whether you are told about maybe some of the items you are required to be able to buy. One of it is a recipe card, because for the very first time when you walk into the kitchen, then you are required for you to be able to have this recipe card where you document each and every recipe that you prepare, each and every session that you are joining in the kitchen. So these recipes, number one, they need we get them especially from the practical cookery, because it is a standard book talking about various meals that are normally prepared worldwide, okay. So there is no alteration, okay. So this one is a bit different from all the recipes that you normally see maybe in the YouTube. People have various ways, the traditional ways of making meals. You'll always find someone telling you, you add this and this and this. They tell you just put 2 cups. They don't give you even exact measurement, and so on, okay. So you might go wrong, okay. So if someone tells you use this cup, how are you going to know that it is the same size of the cup that you normally have it at your place, okay. So in practical cookery, we normally work with measurements, okay. So we have measuring spoons, we have measuring jars, we have measuring scales, and so on, for you to be able to measure that flour, that sugar, that milk the correct way, okay. So if you are supposed to prepare maybe a vanilla cake, a half kg vanilla cake, you will just prepare it just the half kg the way it is. So it is quite important for you to know the standard kind of recipe, so that at least it shows professionalism, okay. So you are not working with ideas, you are working with a formula which has been tried and tested. So at the end of the day, when I test the vanilla cake that you have made, indeed I can ascertain that you used the correct kind of procedure and the recipe is correct. So I can be able to test and tell that this is indeed the right recipe that you used, or either you used the wrong one, okay. So basically the recipe talks about maybe in terms of portioning. You'll notice that if you get maybe an example of a recipe, maybe a certain recipe, for example, if it is making, maybe for example, just making chocolate cake, okay, or vanilla cake, or whatever it is, maybe you have been told to make a half kg, and of course this portioning of this half kg, we have a certain number of people that we are targeting, okay. So we work with numbers. At the end of the day, we just don't produce meals just like that, okay? Just the way we produce meals at home is not the way we produce food in hotels. We produce food in hotels having in mind the number of guests who are going to come in, okay? So there is nothing like gambling, okay? You just don't gamble that if I cook with this big sufuria, then it is an assumption that each and every person, okay, if it is 50 or 20 people, they are going to be satisfied. So you have to calculate. If maybe, for example, 1 cup is equivalent maybe to 2 people, so what about maybe 100 people? So you have to make your math before even starting to prepare the meals. So at the back of your mind, you should also know how to make the calculations for you to do what? To be able to produce meals that can satisfy each and every person who was meant to eat on that specific day. So a recipe normally has just an example of a recipe. For example, you can just have a card, and it's just basically a card which you just write the maybe, for example, if you want to make vanilla cake. So you want to make vanilla cake here. So what you do is write on top of the recipe card, you write the vanilla cake, then write the ingredients, then down. Okay, so after writing the ingredients, then you will have to make a list of the ingredients that you want to prepare. Okay, so maybe on top here of the ingredients, you should also write maybe the portioning, okay, for how many people. You also need to indicate for how many people that that recipe will cater for. So maybe you'll have maybe here, maybe let's say number 1, you'll have flour, okay. And it is quite important also to specify which type of flour, okay? Is it the maize flour, okay? Is it the wheat flour? And so on. So you also have to specify which kind of flour you are going to use. Then go ahead and put the measurements, okay? So you're going to use 1 kg of flour. So then go to number 2, right? You're going to use maybe sugar, okay? So if it is sugar, then you'll come to say, how much sugar do you think you are going to use? So maybe you can say that you're going to use a quarter, okay? A quarter kg or a half kg of sugar. It also depends on, which type of also guests you are preparing this cake for. There's some guests who don't like a lot of sugar. You also have to have it in mind so that you don't put a lot of sugar that might affect maybe the guest who you want to prepare. Then go ahead. If it is the baking, if you're going to use the baking powder or the baking soda, you also have to write it. You basically write even water. If it is water or milk, you're going to use water or milk, you have to write it down here. So the ingredients that you want to use, you have to indicate it here, okay? So after writing the ingredients, you have to move down to procedure, okay? So under the procedure, you also have to indicate, for example, what the process. The procedure is basically the process of doing this. So first of all, what are you going to do? First of all, maybe you are going to weigh the flour, maybe using a weighing scale. Weigh the flour, okay? You weigh the flour. Secondly, maybe you sieve the flour. We normally sieve. We sieve the flour, okay? Next, You will talk about maybe weighing the baking powder, okay? You weigh or you measure. Maybe sometimes they say put maybe a quarter or a half full of maybe a half teaspoon of baking soda or baking powder and so on. So you have also to highlight all the procedures that you're going to use, okay? So the same way the cake will come out, the next person who will come across your recipe will get the same results, okay? The same text, actually the same taste, the same texture, the same everything, okay? So that is the need of having a recipe, a standard recipe. The same way you prepare is the same way the other person is going to prepare their cake, okay? So having these recipe cards is quite important, so that we all know that it is not that easy for you to be able to cram each and every detail, okay? This is what, unless actually this one normally comes with experience. If, for example, you are working in the pastry section, you might master all the recipes that maybe, for example, if it is making the croissants, is making maybe this, all types of cakes and so on. So you will be able to master them as time goes on. But for the starters, it is quite important to write all the recipes in the recipe cards so that you do not forget, okay? And we allow the use of the recipe cards also in the kitchen. Okay, so you'll always find, even if it is a big establishment, they will always have those recipes written, okay? And remember, especially in the pastry section, we work with measurements, okay? So there is no way that you can be able to prepare maybe a cake with guesswork, okay? Because at the end of the day, if you had put much salt, if you had put much sugar, you cannot be able to alter that cake otherwise, okay? We all know it is a bit easier to alter maybe if you had put a lot of salt in maybe a certain stew. You just add a few potatoes so that they absorb the salt and maybe your stew becomes normal, okay? But what if you had put a lot of sugar in the cake? You cannot keep on you can't remove the cake half cooked, then go and remake it again. So you have to be exact with measurements, okay? So having these recipes will help you so much to be able to prepare the right kind of cake, the way it's supposed to be made. So we have advantages of using a standard kind of recipe. Number one is it helps you to have the accurate costing, okay? So for example, if you say that you're going to use 1 kg flour, okay? So you already know how much is it going to cost. Is it going to cost me 60 shillings? Is it 50 shillings or 100 shillings? So you already know this is the amount. So under the ingredients, you can also know that this is the actual amount that I'm going to use to be able to produce this kind of cake. And also it helps you in having a standard kind of buying, so you don't end up buying things that you do not need, okay? So you just don't go guessworking, okay? So if you need vanilla essence, you will just go for vanilla essence. You won't be tempted to go buying what? Strawberry essence, because you won't be able to use it. So another maybe advantage that I can close it by it, the results, it results in quick production, okay? So if you have a standard kind of recipe, then also the production will be a bit easier. It will be smooth, easy. You already know exactly how even the end product is going to look like. So, and lastly, the standard recipe helps you to have standard portioning and sizes, okay? So, and that's why I started saying of, if you want a half kg or a 1 kg kind of cake, you will exactly get it that way, okay? So there will not be maybe an excess or reduction and so on, because you have already measured all the ingredients that you also have. And as much as recipes play a key role, they also have disadvantages in terms of creativity, because you are not able to cook whatever that you want. Okay, maybe to alter maybe specific spices, specific maybe herbs that you want to add into it. So basically you will stick to what maybe the standard way that you know that has been recommended for you to be able to produce. And also you might get bored in terms of referring to all these recipes all the time, but that is normal. And also uh, it also does not encourage people to use their own initiatives. Okay, so you cannot have a makeup of maybe a certain cake that you feel like you want to have. So you have to actually stick to what that has been written and so on. So I think that's all that we can talk about recipes. So the rest we can do that practically. So I want us to also talk about think we can talk about stock sauces and stock soups and sauces. So we can talk about stocks, soups, and sauces. A stock is a liquid which is normally used in making stews, sauces, and soups, and it's a clear liquid. Okay, it's a clear liquid. This is basically the one that you normally, maybe for example, it is made out of bones. It can be made out of vegetables, fresh vegetables, and so on. Okay, so it is actually a liquid with concentrated maybe ingredients. So we use a stock. I don't know, maybe you have heard maybe the usage of stock or people mentioning a stock and so on. So basically, a stock we normally use fresh ingredients to be able to make it. So we don't use ingredients that have already, stayed for a bit of time. So we normally have rules that we normally use in making of this stock. Number one, you have to make sure that the cooking pot, okay, the cooking pot that you're going to use to make your stock is quite clean, and also the usage of fresh ingredients. Okay, making sure that the meat or the bones that are going to be used are fresh, and also they have maybe a pleasant flavor that that does not cause it to spoil quickly. Okay, so I think maybe there's some actually ingredients, especially maybe these vegetables, that normally have um unpleasant flavors. Okay, maybe even the scent is not good, so it can also make the stock. Most of the time when we make the stock, we make it maybe to last maybe a few days or a week, so that at least we can continue using it. Especially in the industry, you have to make much a lot of stock, because it is going to be used in making of the stews, making these the soups, and also the sauces that are going to be made. So you have to also make sure that because it is going to last a bit longer, then you are using ingredients that are actually very fresh so that it does not go bad easily. So the rule applies to each and every type of stock that you are going to make. So you have to make sure that either you are making maybe stock using the bones or using the vegetables, it applies the same way. Okay, so it takes a bit of time to cook. Most of the time it takes more than 3 hours. Okay, so you have to make sure that if it is the bones, you have to remove excess fat from the bones. You wash the bones well, then put them in the boiling water. Okay, and then let them simmer for several hours. Okay, and you have to move the fat that keeps on coming to the top. So your until your stock is ready, you remove it, then store it well. So we actually have two types of stock. We have the white stock and the brown stock. Have the white stock and the brown stock. The white stock is normally made from beef, mutton, and chicken. Okay, and actually it can actually be used in making white soups or sauces. Okay, especially the one that can accompany the fish, that can accompany the beef, and so on. So there is a whole procedure on how to make the white stock. Make sure that you go through it, and also the procedure of making also a brown stock. Okay, so a brown stock you should also know, and also note that whenever you are making a white stock, it has to simmer for 6 to 8 hours. Okay, you keep on simmering and for 6 to 8 hours and skimming it, reboiling it again and again until all the nutrients remain in the liquid. Okay, so you extract all the nutrients that are in the bones or the vegetables, and you just remain with the nutrients in the liquid. And that's why it is actually important for you to make even this stock. You just don't make it just a cup of the stock. You have to make it a lot of stock. So, a lot of stock, because you can see that even the time that it takes, okay, it is not a little time. Okay, so you have to make sure that the stock is always ready, so that whenever you are required to make maybe the soups and the sauces, you don't go and go through all the process of making the stock. It should already be ready for you to be able to use it. So make sure you have gone and understood the procedure that is used, because this we will do it practically, because making stocks, it is quite important for your own knowledge. So we go straight to sauces. After the stocks, we make the sauces. Okay, so we have already known that a stock is a quite important ingredient that is used in making of the sauces and the soups. Okay, so what is a sauce? A sauce is basically a liquid which is normally used to accompany a meal, a dish. Okay, and which has been actually thickened. It has actually been thickened so that it can be used as accompaniment. So most of the time, for example, you order for maybe a fried chicken or maybe a roasted chicken, there always should be a sauce which is accompanied. Most of the time people say that it is called supu. Okay, nipatie supu, but in the real sense, soup is not used as an accompaniment. So instead of asking for a soup, you say you want a sauce. Okay, so the one that, maybe for example, if the rice is dry, or for example the meat is dry, so you need to pour onto it to soften it. Okay, so that is what we call a sauce. So there's a whole procedure on how to make the sauces, and of course maybe I can talk generally on the use of sauce in terms of maybe cooking. Basically, a sauce is used because it enhances flavor. Okay, so, for example, if you are eating maybe mashed potatoes, or you are taking maybe boiled potatoes, so, and adding maybe a sauce into it can create, it can add some flavor to that boiled potatoes. Okay, and you will, enjoy your meal. So, and also it gives us a color. Okay, so for example, if it is you are preparing macaroni in cheese sauce, okay, so you can see that the color of macaroni, you can see how dull it is, and when you add maybe a cheese sauce, or maybe a sauce which has a bit of a color, you can see that it will automatically give it a good color, and it will improve the texture and appearance of the food automatically. Okay, so basically I said that one of its functions is to enhance, maybe it is to soften food. Okay, so if you are eating, maybe for example, the roasted chicken and so on, so you really, of course, roasted chicken can be a bit hard, so if you put a bit of sauce, it can, soften it in a way, so, and give it a good some moisture to it. Okay, so that at least when you eat it, it does not you do not feel, like you're really eating hard things in your mouth. Also, it helps in digestions and gives it a balanced diet, and ensures that it binds food together. Okay, so for example, the apple sauce can give a good digestion, especially when you are eating your meals. So it has a lot of purposes. Sauces have a lot of purposes that they play. They're just not accompaniment, just like that. And just notice, each and every meal, while preparation, you will always be needed to prepare a sauce with it. Okay, so if you are preparing a fish, it is good also to prepare a type of sauce that goes well with the fish. For example, if it is fish, we prepare it using the um, tartar sauce. Okay, so it goes well with tartar sauce. So sometimes, maybe if it is the cold sauces, we have, for example, mayonnaise. I know that maybe you have had a lot of the mentioning of mayonnaise. So if you are making maybe some salad to eat with, maybe French fries, you can, make a good, you can add some mayonnaise to it for you to make maybe the coleslaw salad that has a good taste in it. So the sauces actually play a big role for you, just not to for you to enjoy the meals. Okay, and that's why they are referred to as accompaniment. They accompany the main meal. So we have soups. We have soups. So I mentioned earlier on that when you're talking about so I said maybe examples of soup. You can have an example of sauces as mayonnaise here, as a cold sauce. So maybe we go straight to soups. Okay. So while making the stock, we also take part of the stock to make the soups. Okay. So earlier on, I had mentioned about a three-course meal, and that three-course meal, I said that it needs to have a starter, and that starter, it can be either sometimes we call it a starter, and some people call it appetizer, so they actually mean the same thing. So soups are used as starters. Okay. So for examples of these soups, I think I should give examples here. We can make examples of potato soup. We have maybe another one we call the pumpkin soup. Sometimes we call it pumpkin soup, pumpkin veloute, and so on. Actually depends on the way you are going to prepare it. Okay, so you have the potato soup, you have the pumpkin soup, and so on. There are so many. You can actually make different types of soups. Okay, even green pea soups. Okay, we normally make them. So this one is normally used. They are normally wholesome kind of nutritious foods that are normally made, especially maybe from meat, vegetables, and cereals. Okay, so you can just eat, the potato soup and the pumpkin soup, and you still, feel full. Okay, so basically they are just there to create an appetite. Okay, they just, prepare the stomach for the main course. So you'll just notice that most of the time we serve them before even the meals, because number one, they ensure that they create, maybe they prepare the digestive system. Okay, they prepare the digestive system before you take the main course. So we have two categories of soups. We have the clear soups and we have the thick soups. Clear soups and the thick soups. So clear soups, an example of a clear soup is called the consomme. Okay. So we have two types of soups here. We have the clear soup and we have the thick soup. Another example of the clear soup, we have maybe consomme. This is actually common. Consomme. Consomme, this type of consomme is actually referred to as clarified and should be crystal clear. Okay, so in other words, we say clear soup is normally referred to as consomme. So it has an axle. It has an axle here. See that? It has a punctuation mark on top of there. We normally put. I don't know. I think this is not the right way that we put it. Right way, but I think there is a punctuation that we normally put at the last E to be able to, pronounce it the right way. So it is actually a clear soup. It's a clarified kind of soup. And so we have also the thick soups. Of course, the thick soup, an example of a thick soup, we can say maybe the pumpkin kind of soup. Basically, these types of thick soups They are the ones maybe which have, an addition of cereals. They have addition of maybe meat, pieces of meat or poultry, and so on. Okay, so they also have a bit of cream. So there are so many, okay, especially for the thick soups. So you can just make sure that you go through them. And also note that we also garnish our food at the end of as we prepare the soups, we have to make sure that at least we put garnishing on it. Garnishing is actually to enhance maybe the flavor, okay, the flavor, the color, and just make sure that the soup looks more presentable. So you can just imagine trying to present a potato soup. Okay, so you already know how a potato soup, if you can be able to imagine how it looks like, you can see that it's a bit plain, but you also make sure that at least we garnish it. Okay, you can garnish it with cheese, maybe, probably, or garnish it with crotons. Crotons is actually making some small dices from the white part of the piece of bread. We cut it into small cubes, then deep fry it. Okay, so you deep fry it, then it gets a golden brown kind of color. Then you just place it, just a small piece on top of maybe the soup that you are serving to the guest. So I think that's all about stocks, soups, and sauces. So I want us to go straight uh, to the main topic for today, what we were supposed to today, unless there is any question. So we'll talk about the protein, the starch, and the vegetables together also with the salads. Okay, so I mentioned even a three-course meal, and you saw me mentioning about protein. Okay, the service of protein, the service of protein. A minute, I continue the recording. So when we are mentioning the different types of protein, so what comes into your mind is maybe meat, okay, the animal products that normally, actually, we are going to talk about more of the animal products that we get the protein from. So basically we are talking about the meat, different types of meat. Okay, different types of meat. We have the red meat, we have the white meat, and so on. So maybe an example of an example of red meat. Have the red meat. You also have the white meat. Okay, so an example of the red meat is, for example, the beef. Okay, so we're talking about beef is red meat. Maybe, for example, goat meat is red meat. So white meat, we can talk about maybe, for example, chicken. We can talk about fish, and so on. So it is actually important for us to talk about this protein, and basically our main focus is more on how to prepare, how to preserve it, and so on. Okay, so talking about different types of meat, it is not quite it is something that we already know. Okay, so, and of course, it is quite also important to know that this meat, we prepare them in the kitchen. Okay, so if I talk about maybe preparing the veal, preparing the pork, preparing maybe game meat, and so on, preparing the seafoods, we prepare them in the kitchen. We prepare them because actually they are a good source of proteins, okay, and although they have a good source of proteins, they also have nutritional other nutritional components that they normally add to our bodies, okay. They have vitamins, they have fats, and so on. So it is quite important also to know that even for you to buy, maybe to choose a specific, maybe to choose, maybe to buy maybe meat, for instance, if it is red meat or white meat, then also you need to consider some factors, okay. So you know that protein is highly uh, it can become toxic in terms of causing food poisoning if you do not handle it with care, okay. So even at home, you just notice that you have, maybe for example, to make sure that you boil it enough so that at least you make it a bit lean, and also ensure that you have killed all the bacteria or the germs that might be present in the meat. So you have to make sure that at least you know how also to make this type of meat, because at the end of the day, the reason as to why we cook meat is to make it tender, okay, and digestible, because we are omnivores, okay. We cook our food first before we just eat it. We can't just eat it raw. And also you make sure that at least it develops, a good flavor. Okay. So you might choose, maybe for example, to roast it, maybe for example to make maybe a stew or a fry, and so on, because you want it to have a palatable kind of taste in your mouth. So there are principles, of course, that are normally that you normally use, especially in preparing this meat. But it is quite important to know that also the storage of meat is equivalently important. So you will notice that meat, even if it is the fridge, you will always see that there is an indication, especially on the freezer side. That is where you are supposed to put maybe animal products. Okay, be it maybe maybe the fish, be it maybe chicken, be it what, you are always required to put it in the freezer, because change of temperatures can make the meat go bad. So you have to ensure that it is always in low temperatures, very low temperatures, okay. So if it can be put in a freezer, well and good, because if you do not put it there, then it will go bad easily, and it is going to cause food poisoning, which we actually do not like. So buying this type of meat, you also have to consider also maybe the choice of the color, okay. So if it is red meat that you want, and you see that it is has funny color, then definitely you might not want to buy that kind of meat. Or maybe for example, if you smell and the smell is not good, then you will definitely know that this meat is not fresh, okay. So you also have to ensure that you just check the meat first, so that you do not prepare uh, maybe another type of meat which is not consumable, okay. So I don't know whether you noted that there are some times whereby um donkeys, I don't know whether people were making donkeys, okay, donkey meat, and then they pretend that it is just any type of meat. Even the samosas, you even get scared of eating samosas, because whatever that is put in samosas, it is not good meat, okay. So basically you have also to check some of the qualities of the meat, so that you don't end up buying or preparing meat which is not good. So I think we can talk about talking about proteins. I think that's enough. Unless there is any question about proteins, we can talk about starch. That is actually the order that we normally use in terms also for making our menus. You'll notice that we have a certain procedure that we use. First of all, you have to start with the protein. Okay, is it maybe the meat? Is it, which type of meat? Is it a red meat? Is it a white meat? So if it is the fish, you have to put it there. If it is the beef that you want to cook or prepare, you have to put it there as well. For the starch, basically the starch we are talking about, maybe the rice. Okay, talking about rice, talking about cereals. Okay, rice, cereals, potatoes, okay, cassava, any type of product that we normally use as a starch. Okay, so it can be types of cereals, can be types of cereals or pulses, can be potatoes, arrowroots, pasta. Okay, and also include pasta there. So basically that is normally what we normally use, maybe to make maybe a type of meal which we refer maybe as a starch. And of course wheat falls under maybe starch, that's under cereals, the oats, and so on. So it is actually basically important for you also to know that the storage of this for starch is quite important. You have to ensure that, especially if it is pasta, maize, and any other type of cereals, is stored in a good dry place. Okay. So, and also ensure that if it is the potatoes, for example, the arrowroots and the cassava, you have to put them, you don't put them together, of course, but you have to ensure that you put them in a large space which they can be able to get a good aeration. Okay, you just don't stock them together in one sack. Okay, if it is possible, pour them and spread them so that they do not rot in between. So also check on maybe on how to cook. Okay, preparation of, for example, if it is rice is prepared in various ways. Of course, you have to, maybe you can prepare fried rice. Okay, you can use maybe rice, you can boil it. Okay, there are various ways in which be able to make even the rice. You'll see even we are making vegetable rice and so on. So we'll be able to maneuver through various ways in which we can be able to make these types of rice or cereals or pasta that we have. Okay, in terms of the starch that we normally need to complete the meal for the day. So maybe you can talk a bit of the vegetables that we normally, the vegetables. Have vegetables. We, of course, when I'm talking this about vegetables are definitely classified also according to the part which they are produced from. Okay, so you can hear someone saying about maybe root 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 vegetable. Okay, some can say the tuber vegetable, some can say the bulb, the leafy, the stems, the fruity, and the fungi. Okay, so maybe you can list a few classification of the vegetables. So we have the root vegetables, we have the tubers, have the pawns, we have the leafy, we have the fruit vegetables. Okay. We have the bulb, we have the stem, Okay. So all these are, vegetable classification. Okay, so vegetables can be classified according to, maybe are they root vegetables, are they, leafy vegetables, are they fruit vegetables, and so on. So in regards to that, for example, if you're talking about maybe root vegetables, a good example of root vegetables, we can say that it is a beetroot, okay, a carrot. We also have tuber vegetables. We have, maybe a good example is sweet potatoes. We have the yams, the bulbs. We have the garlic. We have the onions, and for the leafy, we have the spinach and the kales. Okay, so in other words, we can say that the vegetables are normally classified under those groups. Okay, so you can't just say that, for example, you can be asked whether is a tomato maybe a fruit or a vegetable. Okay, so you should also know that, tomatoes fall under the classification of fruit vegetables. Okay, so, and also avocados, they fall under fruit vegetables, under that classification of fruit vegetables. So vegetables also, you also need to know on how to purchase them. Okay, so there are various ways in which you will be able to know whether, if it is the root vegetables, how clean are they. Okay, so just don't buy maybe carrots. Okay, so because carrot falls under the group of root vegetables, so you go ahead maybe buying carrots that are not clean, they are not, they are not firm enough. Okay, they have a lot of marks on them. Okay, so there are things that you have to consider: the quality of these vegetables. So you just don't go to the market and buy things just, you have to choose the ones that you really require, the ones that do not have a lot of defects. So if it is maybe leafy vegetables and the likes, you have also to consider certain ways in which you can be able to check them, so that you buy what is fresh, what is, does not have uh, parasites. Some of them even have parasites. So you have to check, especially when you're talking about leafy vegetables. You note mostly the kales, the spinach. You will see that there are insects like the aphids. Okay, so when you are buying, you also have to check, so that you do not buy leafy vegetables which are not good. So, and I think I can also combine it together with fruits. Fruits, of course, you've heard me mentioning that fruits we use, especially in terms of dessert. Most of the time we prepare fruit salad. Okay, sometimes fruit salad is good, especially in terms of eating it as a dessert, and also making juices. Okay, so according to the classification of also the vegetables, you note that even the fruits are classified also that way, with various groups. Like, for example, if you're talking about the stone fruits, we have the citric fruits, we have the berry fruit, we have the fleshy fruit, and so on. Okay, so if you're talking about the stone fruits, then we have mangoes, we have apricots, we have cherries, and so on. So you notice that if it is the stone fruit, it is made from, we can highlight it here. So we have this stone fruit. Basically it's because of the seed. Okay, so this one is more referred to as stone fruit because of the seed. Okay, so if it is an example of a mango, so you can see that even a mango fruit, you can see even the seed is hard enough. So if you've eaten an apricot, you can see even this the seed. Okay, so it signifies, also the classification in which it falls under. So we have citric fruits, and of course citric fruits is obvious, especially when you're mentioning the citric fruits, citrus fruits. So we an example is the oranges, okay, the lemons, and so on. So another example of a classification of the fruits is the berry fruits. Okay, so these ones are like the blackberries, the black currants, and so on. Okay, so there are so many. So basically we classify them also depending on also their characteristic, the characteristic that they possess. So as I said earlier on, the fruits, most of the time they have nutrients. So as I was saying earlier on, that the berry, okay, so you can be able to eliminate, I think just has double R. So the berry fruits, of course, the black currants and the like. So the fruits actually have nutrients in terms of maybe vitamins, as I said earlier. If it is a sweet, if you're talking about oranges, you'll notice an orange has vitamin C. Okay, so it helps also to build the body. So, and the fruits, of course, can be stored in various ways, and the same way as I mentioned earlier on how to be able to consider the purchasing and of these fruits, you also have to check on, even the color. So for example, if it is a mango, you have to check the color. Is it, a nice, yellow color? If maybe, for example, it is, uh, a blackberry, so you have to see whether is it a very nice red or maroon color, and so on. So you have to consider also the color of the fruit to be able also to know whether it is ripe. Okay, so is it fresh, and so on. So there are various ways in which we preserve it. We can preserve it, maybe dry them. Okay, good examples are like, for example, um, the sultanas, the currants that we normally use to bake with. We also have canning. We can can them, okay, so that at least, I don't know whether you have seen some canned fruits. Okay, so you have to ensure that you put sugar syrup, okay, so that it can preserve it for a bit longer. So I think we can talk about, maybe lastly, about the salads. We can talk about the salads. So talking about salads, most of the time we use them as maybe starters. Most of the time we use them as starters. You'll see that we use them as starters. And I think maybe if I mention maybe a fruit salad, basically it doesn't mean that it is a starter. Uh, A fruit salad falls under dessert. A dessert is a sweet item that is taken after completion of a meal. Okay, so if, for example, you have eaten your main course, then you take maybe a cake, a piece of cake, or a piece of fruit slice or fruit salad, just to complete your meal. That is what we refer as a dessert. So salads, most of the time we consume them as appetizers. So basically it is just a mixture or a combination of vegetables. It's a combination of vegetables, and we either have a simple type of salad and compound. Okay, simple, just from the word simple, you can be able to relate it to So from the word simple, you can be able to see that it is made using maybe few ingredients. Okay, so for example, tomato cucumber salad is just a simple salad because it is made from maybe a simple type with a combination of simple ingredients. Okay, so you can see that it only consists of two ingredients. Okay, sometimes we just put maybe beetroot and tomato. As long as the combination goes well with each other, then you can just say that this one is it is a good salad. Okay, so you cannot put maybe you cannot choose various types of vegetables, just assume that they can go together. You have also to consider the texture when you're eating, and remember that most of the salads are raw salads. Okay, so you do not cook them, unless maybe some require a bit of pre-cooking so that they become a bit palatable. So salads are actually important to our health. I think I can just write it here. We have these two types of salads, which are simple salads, and we have compound salads. Okay, so compound is just multiple. Okay, so you can have a combination of more than two. Combination of more than two makes a compound salad. So they have important salads are very important uh, to the diet. They normally add color, of course, to the meals, and they also add nutrients, rich nutrients. And remember that salads are, when you eat the salads, you eat them raw, so the nutrients are absorbed easily. Okay, all the nutrients are kept within these vegetables. And some salads, of course, add roughage, okay, in terms of maybe, for example, if the coleslaw salad, of course, is a combination of maybe onions, it's a combination of cabbage and carrots. So you can see that the cabbage in the coleslaw salad is going to give good roughage to the diet. So it has a lot of advantages, uses to the diet. So make sure that you also go through them in detail so that you are able to get all the importance that it has. So preparation of the ingredients that are used for the salad is quite important to you to know that because we consume the salad raw, then it is important to use fresh ingredients. Okay, so you cannot just even if you do not use the right fresh ingredients, then even the salad will look
You are
boring.
currently the
Okay,
only person in this
so you
conference.
have to ensure that they are fresh enough so that when you're preparing it, then they look presentable. Okay, even the guests can just serve themselves and they just feel like it is good to be eaten. So make sure that you also check on the rules that are there for making the salads. And I just want to talk about maybe the main types of dressing, okay? Main types of dressing that we normally use while preparation of the salads. So we normally use, maybe for example, mayonnaise. We use mayonnaise, we use vinaigrette to be able to dress. As after we have made the salad, we pour maybe the mayonnaise on top, or combine it together with the salad, or add it because of the flavor or the texture, or to make it taste better. Okay, so you just don't make it. And that's why I said, when I mentioned about mayonnaise being put maybe in the coleslaw salad, okay, it is a sauce. It is a cold sauce which is used as a dressing when we are making the coleslaw salad. Okay, so addition of mayonnaise brings out a different taste, a different texture, and so on. So salad play a critical role to complete the meal. So I think we can wind up on that, unless there is any question.